Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending upon where you are in the world, and welcome to today's webinar, the first in the Mobile BI webinar series. Today's event is entitled Architecting Your Mobile BI Platform, hosted by SAP Insider and presented by Decision First Technologies. I'm Steve Paul. I'm your moderator today. We have just a few announcements before we begin. This webinar is designed to be interactive between you and our presenters. There is no dial-in required, so you can listen through your computer speakers, or audio is available via call-in numbers as provided. You can participate in our Q&A session by asking questions about the information presented in this webinar at any time. Just type your question into the text box located at the bottom right of your console. We'll answer as many questions as time permits after our presentation. Also, later in the program, we'll ask for your feedback, and there is a survey once you exit the event. Slides will advance automatically throughout the event, and if you require a PDF copy of the slides, a link will be sent to you to access the archived version as well as the PDF. At this time, we recommend you disable your pop-up blockers. If you're experiencing any technical problems, please visit our webinar help guide by clicking on the help link in the upper right-hand corner of your console. And now on to our presentation, Architecting Your Mobile BI Platform. Discussing today's topic will be Bob Zenker, Practice Manager with Decision First Technologies, and we also have Stefan Nikais, Corporate Sales with Decision First Technologies. First, we'll hear from Stefan.
Thanks, Steve, and thanks everyone for joining us today to learn more about the BusinessObjects Mobile BI platform. As many of you may not be familiar with Decision First Technologies as an organization, we'll start this webinar with a brief overview of our firm, and then I'll turn it over to Bob, for the presentation you guys have all been waiting for. So DFT, as we call Decision First Technologies, is a leading SAP analytics partner based in Atlanta. And as a matter of fact, we've been named Partner of the Year 7 times by SAP, including in 2013. We sell, we support, and we implement the complete portfolio of BusinessObjects products. Our sole focus as a company is business intelligence and data warehousing, and we've been in business for over a decade, so well before the acquisition by SAP. We've helped over 1,000 customers drive business outcomes from their data along the way. One of the things that makes DFT a great company is our consultants. They're experts in their field and often industry thought leaders. We have a deep knowledge of all the front-end tools, which is kind of a given, but one of the main differentiators of our company is our leading EIM practice, and that's all the data quality tools and ETL tools from SAP. So we've done tremendous work with data services, with information steward, and we understand the importance of data quality and data governance to drive BI success. And one last point about us, our close relationship with SAP has led us to be an early adopter of HANA, and we have actually opened a Center of Excellence here in Atlanta, and we're working with different customers of all sizes on use cases for HANA that drive user adoption for BI like never before. Next slide. A quick slide on our customers here. Over the years, we've worked with thousands of customers, like I said, and we've worked with customers of all sizes and in different industries. And even though we don't have a particular industry focus, we've worked on a number of specific use cases in all the industries that you can see on your screen right now. More specific to mobile, I'll go through a few examples of work we've done with customers. The names will remain confidential, though. So the first example is a multi-billion-dollar specialty chemical company for which we've taken content that was previously in Webby and is now delivered on mobile device for their sales management team. The metrics include product sales, a sold to breakdown, and some information about their distributors network. Another example of mobile work we've done is with an oil and gas company based in Dallas, and we've worked with their finance group to deliver their financial statements, which were, crystal content, to their executives. And the other thing we've done with them is a dashboard that offers a what-if scenario showing oil and gas sales and volumes to predict the effect on overall income. And one last example with customers is a leading beverage company for which we deliver crystal reports on mobile, dashboards, and also some ad hoc exploration with Explorer for their top-level executives. And that's it for my part here. I will now turn it over to Bob for the introduction of the mobile platform. Bob?
Thank you, Stefan. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to come to our presentation, our webinar. We definitely know that your time is very important, and so we like to present and jump straight into our webinar. Our agenda today is going to be a focus really on deployment associated with the BI tools within SAP for mobile. Our area, along with that, we've had an opportunity to do that with many customers. Just some of the examples that Stefan just recently provided for you. We typically see that go through a specific plan, and I think that's a core element of our webinar today. That planning for your deployment. Prior to that, we're going to look at some of the examples related to BI Mobile. And just highlight some terminology, probably things that you're probably familiar with already, terms that you've seen, but just to get us all in the same level playing field, I'll go through some of those items. A big element associated when people are looking to provide their BI content on mobile devices is a security concern. I want to help highlight some of the items that we discuss with our clients. Some of the solutions that we provide, and hopefully give you some suggestions on how you can handle security in a balanced way, both so that it's still user-friendly for end users to get into the content, but then also securing your data within your organization. We'll jump into specific deployment strategies, and we'll go over specific options from a technical perspective, and then we'll give you summary related to takeaways and provide you resources and references so that you, if you have additional questions or want to understand more where some of this information from the slides came from, you can look at those. Today, this is the first of the mobile webinars that we are providing for you guys, and I really do hope that you have an opportunity to pick up and see some of the other webinars we're providing. When we kind of sat and talked about, boy, it'd be great if we could, show all the great things that SAP is providing related to BI Mobile. Where should we start with? And we kind of said, architecting and understanding what you need for BI Mobile is a good place to start. Hopefully that'll answer a lot of questions. And then in preceding webinars, we're going to really dive into specific examples related to web intelligence, Crystal, the tools themselves, and how they get built and then shown within the mobile devices. And so today my goal here is to really kind of help you understand, when we're working with clients and we're strategizing and understanding how we're going to roll out a deployment, what's the best way to do that? And some of our, information that we provide our clients. But to give a level kind of playing field and understanding of what mobile is, if you haven't had a chance to see it, I wanted to give a few examples initially. And so that's what these first few slides are for. As an example here, this is an SAP BusinessObjects dashboard built within the Excelsius dashboarding tool. This specific dashboard is designed and being rendered on an iOS device, an iPad device is where I captured this screenshot. From a SAP dashboards design tool, there's about 35 design components that are available now for both BI Mobile and can be leveraged developing dashboards that are still within the Flash viewing. I think one of the nice things about the mobile app that that allows to show this dashboard is that it allows you to do a full screen layout. So it takes up the entire mobile device and allows all corners of the dashboards to show. As you can see, with dashboard designs, you get an opportunity, of course, to summarize a tremendous amount of data in a very highly designed application so that you can convey it in a very specific method. And we'll see other examples here in just a moment using Crystal and Web Intelligence and the Explorer tools, where you might give an end user more abilities to dive into the data. But typically with dashboards, you're trying to summarize the information and provide it in a very specific manner. Another dashboarding tool that is rendered and possible to be seen inside of the mobile devices is Design Studio. SAP BusinessObjects Design Studio product is the future dashboard designing tool based on the roadmap. From the dashboarding tool, the Design Studio eventually will be the application continuing on for dashboards. This is a really powerful dashboard development tool, almost to the point where you can really build BI applications. And as you can see, cosmetically, it can really highlight and show content very nicely. As of right now, connectivity related to the Dashboard Design Studio tool is limited to HANA and BW data, but we'll be expanding based on the roadmap related for that product. Our next example is Explore in the exploration views. If you've had an opportunity to see the SAP BusinessObjects Explorer, it's a great tool to allow end users interactive analysis and ad hoc capability of their BI content. Explore information spaces and exploration views can be rendered in a very highly graphical format, including things like geomaps, being able to that can be customizable based on your specific customer data or your specific data based on longitude and latitude points. This product is really incredible. The desktop version that you see normally inside of SAP BusinessObjects is almost identically mapped over, associated within the mobile device. You really have great interaction associated with the product, being able to slice and dice and see the data and drill through that content. Web Intelligence is probably a piece of content that many of you actually currently have within your BI platform, and you're being able to provide out for your end users. Web Intelligence has the ability to format automatically into a mobile device. Things like charts, tables of data, easily convert over, associated into the mobile design. Here we have two highlights real quickly of a map that we've presented data points within, and then also a column chart. Some of the new features that we see in the most recent release of the iOS application is the ability to support formatting in tables, additional supports of additional chart types, some customized coloring related to microcharts, and now also if you wanted to interact with PDF versions of the Web Intelligence reports, you can have it just generate out in PDF and interact with prompts within that version, that style of the report. Of course, Crystal Reports has the ability also to be presented in a mobile device, and we have filtering with Crystal Reports is supported, and then when refreshing the report relating to your content inside the mobile device, prompts will be interactive. End users will be able to answer those prompts and then see the content. A newer feature within the iOS application is the ability to embed hyperlinks. When adding hyperlinks into BI Launchpad, those hyperlinks then also can be shared out to the mobile application. Clicking on that hyperlink might take you to additional BI content that you might have related to your company that you'd like to share with end users. Instead of taking you out of the application, within your mobile device. It actually keeps you within the mobile device now, that application within the mobile device. So allowing the person just simply to go back, and then they're back into the next BI content that they'd like to look at within the mobile device. We're all hearing a little bit about Lumira, and support for Lumira is also within the mobile application. This connectivity can be both on the Lumira servers and the Lumira Cloud. Here we're seeing a quick chart, also highlighting some of the measures and attributes that you can analyze the data with. Okay, so there's a few examples, and hopefully that gives you some perspective of what we're talking about from a mobile presentation that you get within the SAP BusinessObjects mobile app. Let's talk a little bit about terminology. So we kind of, as I'm going through the presentation, I want to make sure that you understand that SSL is Secured Socket Link. This is the encryption between two nodes within your network. So the SSL that we're kind of highlighting and talking about mostly within this application are typically between whatever mobile device you have and coming back to the BusinessObjects Web Application Server, or possibly going through other devices. VPN, I think most of us are kind of familiar with virtual private networks. Working from home or working remotely from the office, we VPN back into our network, and then are part of that network and have that capability of being able to use the resources on that network. This is a method that some clients will leverage to be able to deploy out their mobile solutions. And so we are going to highlight that and discuss about VPN and extending your VPN out into mobile devices also. BYOD is bring your own device. This is popular and becoming more popular associated with companies in the United States, but very popular in companies abroad outside of the United States, where companies are allowing employees to come and bring their device, their mobile device, whether it's a phone or iPads, Droid-related type of devices, and connect those to the network and being able to get content related to corporate information on those devices. And so bring your own device brings up different questions related to security and control related to your information as a corporate organization. We're going to try to address some of those here today, or at least highlight some of those questions that you might be you might want to discuss within your organization when you're doing your deployment. Web application server. In our example that we have on the right-hand side here, we're showing Tomcat 7 as our web application server. Other web application servers are WebSphere and SAP's NetWeaver. These web application servers are the code that actually helps generate web applications like BI Launchpad or InfoView, or the CMC, Central Management Console. We have the web application server also providing content related to the mobile application. And so it's a key element of actually serving up content out to our iPads and iPhones and Android devices. A reverse proxy is a way to front web application servers to provide an installation and security mechanism for external users to being able to hit content behind the firewall. And reverse proxies also have the ability to manage SSL certificates and provide compression for higher performance related to sending out content. We're going to discuss a little bit about reverse proxies and how they might get implemented. It's an optional option when you're deploying out your mobile environment, but something that could be recommended and considered a good practice. And then, of course, your demilitarized zone, or your DMZ. Here in this design document, we're highlighting it in yellow. It's the area that protects between two networks. We're sharing, in our example here, two boxes that have connectivity externally. And that external, access typically is considered, maybe out to the internet. And then your internal corporate network is behind that DMZ. Firewall between that environment. You might place servers in between there, that have access externally and internally to help provide security away from your network. Again, probably terminology that you're familiar with, but wanted to give everybody just a quick definition of some of those items before we jumped into planning our deployment. You know, when I look at planning deployments on a mobile environment for customers, I really think of it kind of in 3 stages. There's a pre-deployment, and there's a process and a checklist that we go through and when we're discussing and helping clients. Then we come through and we usually look at the actual deployment process. And then not to forget, of course, is that after you deployed, what's that post-deployment process look like? And so we're going to just go through these slides and discuss some of the items that we really suggest that we look at and make sure that you short up. Our first item is that do you actually have licensing for the BI mobile application? When looking at current licensing structures for SAP for BI, it's BI Suite is a very popular licensing process, and mobile is included inside of BI Suite. And so if you have the BI Suite product, you probably then you typically would be available for the mobile application and be able to leverage the mobile tools. If you're in a more traditional SAP licensing based on CPUs or named user licenses, we would recommend that maybe you reach out to Stefan or to your SAP account manager and discuss what your licensing is for mobile before running out and kind of deploying that and installing it. Secondly, the item that we would focus on is also estimating your additional usage related to mobile. Obviously, providing easier access to your BI content through mobile devices, we would hope would increase your usage. And so we want to make sure that you have the right sizing for your licensing so that if you roll it out to a larger part of your organization, mobile-wise, that they don't have issues related to getting into your content if you have some sort of concurrent licensing structure like BI Suite. When thinking about the deployment of your BI mobile environment, we usually will see additional web application servers being installed and deployed in organizations. Usually what we think about for this is if you are currently have external access to business objects in another method, we probably can leverage that web application server that your method of externally allowing either vendors or other end users or possibly even customers get into your business objects environment. But if you don't have that external access currently, then you'll probably want to look at providing another web application server, and then optionally also maybe using a reverse proxy or Sybase Unwired platform to be able to provide additional security and performance enhancement related to deploying that content. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but kind of keep that in mind that you might need to look at your architecture and increase additional systems. From a support perspective, looking at XI3.1, SP3, on the BI4 platforms with all the service packs related to those, and the BI4.1. Not mentioning SP0, the ramp-up version, but of course it has compatibility with mobile, but the general release version of SP01 here. In XI3.1, it was a separate installation for the mobile tools. I will mention that there is there are some elements that are not supported to XI3.1 related to the application, the mobile applications themselves. The mobile applications will work, but those features might not be available. For BI4.0, SP4, and prior releases from a service pack perspective in BI4.0, there's an additional process of having to deploy the WAR files manually. We're not going to go into the details specifically of that, but did want to make you aware of that. If you're at that release, you'll probably want to go look at your installation documentation and walk through the steps related to deploying the WAR files if you want BI Mobile to be available. BI4.0, SP5 to the BI4.1, SP01 releases. Mobile is a part of the standard installation related to the Business Objects platform. So as you're deploying those components, that's a feature that you can enable and disable. When deploying in a structure where it's a distributed environment, we will typically deploy the web application elements on web servers, specifically on the internal tiers or intelligence tiers and processing tiers. If you're not deploying your web application server there, you will not need to deploy the mobile components on those. When looking at deploying out BI content, a key element is assessing your current reports and dashboards for support of the BI tools. Crystal Reports natively really converts pretty easily over to the mobile environment. When taking a Crystal report, whether it's a scheduled version of that report or an on-demand version, the content really converts over as a PDF image and has interaction in that sense. And so the Crystal reports convert pretty quickly. The web intelligence and the dashboarding tools may or may not convert fully. You can provide access associated for that content type, but additional redevelopment or adjustments to those types of items might be needed. And so we do recommend assessing that content if you want to specifically identify content and reports and dashboards that you're going to release out to a mobile device. That's a good way to start. Another element for the pre-deployment checklist is how many apps am I going to actually rolling out to my end users? Thinking about this, I have a mobile application, a mobile device that I'm going to have to install applications onto so that people can access this BI content. And prior releases to the 4.1, there are 2 applications that are necessary if you want all the BI content. There's an Explorer application. And this Explorer application does continue to work in BI 4.1 if you're only looking to roll out Explorer content to your end users. SAP BI Mobile is the other application, and that's available. And it is the application that allows to provide for Webby and Crystal for the dashboarding tools and the Design Studio applications in Lumira. Currently, in the latest release of the application, and if you have BI 4.1, SPO01, Explorer content can actually be leveraged in a single app in the SAP BI Mobile application. And so if you're at a later release and you have the latest app that you're going to be deploying out, you can just then deploy out one single app, and all content can be shared in there. Another item that we look on the checklist is for device compatibility. Here is the supported platform information related to BI 4.1, SPO1. We can see that iOS devices are supported, Android devices are supported also, and it kind of gives you specific information related to content and versions that's supported within those releases. Highly recommend looking at the supported platform information related to your version of BusinessObjects. Again, this is the latest version. And so it does give you some ideas in the sense of if you're going to be rolling out mobile and you want to be able to provide the largest amount of compatibility with mobile devices, then you might look to be doing a BusinessObjects upgrade at the same time up to the latest release. Lastly, and certainly not the least, related to our pre-deployment checklist, working with IT and the security teams to understand corporate standards for managing content on mobile devices. If your organization has standards related to how they leverage devices, mobile devices on the network, that's a great start. Most organizations, when looking at, that I've worked with, when looking at and discussing providing corporate information out to mobile devices, they've limited that mostly to calendaring information and also to email. Organizations, sometimes when coming and looking at mobile devices like this might be their first endeavor of actually being able to provide BI content or corporate-specific transactions and information in that sense out to mobile devices. And so that might require an expansion of your standards that you have within your corporation. Or if you don't have standards currently, it might be a great time to make those standards prior to going live and just rolling out the content and kind of figuring it out after the fact. Now, these standards include things like, will I allow reports to be downloaded to the device itself? Will I allow people to work offline within those mobile devices? How will I handle password protection? Will I allow them to be able to save their password on their devices, or will I have to make them and challenge them each time I'm logging in? These are things that are controllable within the mobile application, and they're driven based on the server app and pushed down to the mobile devices, but are things that need to be determined for your organization. So those are some of the things that we have from a pre-deployment. Now when we're actually into a deployment process, we usually are building up the infrastructure, making adjustments or installing web application servers, configuring SSL certificates or leveraging existing certificates that you might have on your network, and then possibly setting up a reverse proxy. Once we've got the infrastructure set up, we're usually doing internal testing with IT and identifying reports and dashboards that you want to provide out to the mobile devices. You know, the process of releasing existing content out to mobile devices is really easy. You know, SAP has done a great job of being able to say, we're going to leverage an existing category. If the category doesn't exist there, you just need to add it. It's called mobile. And then you attach that to your BI content that you want to provide out to mobile devices. By assigning that mobile category, then makes it available on the mobile devices. In addition, you also have to have access both to the category and access to the content that's associated. So business objects security is still managed through the mobile devices. It's not an additional setup related to the content. You build and connect with your same credentials, typically, that you would have internally. So if I'm able to see a report inside of my desktop, inside of Business Objects, then I'll also, if it's assigned to the mobile category, be able to see that on my mobile device. Adding mobile apps that support your Business Objects version is next within that application. This can be completed by sending links to end users that have mobile devices. Click here to go and download this from the Apple store and pull down this application, or directing you to the Google app site and pulling down that application related on the Droid devices. Adding connections to the BI environment can be done manually by typing in that this is the connection information related back to our Business Objects servers. Here's my username. This is my authentication type that I'm leveraging to be able to connect. Or you could send a link related to that content and provide that directly to out to your end users. They click on that link and it'll add it in into their that mobile application. End user training is a key element when planning your deployment. And so once you've gone through the testing and you've ensured that the content that you're providing out is going to be presenting well within the mobile environment, coming together and providing training for your end users is key to their success. When thinking about deploying out mobile applications, you might be deploying out more to people that are just at your one location. And this might be remote sales representatives, customer service people that are throughout the country or the world. Have a strategy related to your training and also being able to help support as they connect up to those mobile applications and downloading those applications. Providing that information will initially be a lot of work when you're rolling out BI Mobile to end users, but realize that mobile devices are switched out frequently, and especially if you're using a model that's a bring your own device. Adding this same type of connection information can be frequent, more than just the rolling out process. As people purchase new devices and they're going to be leveraging those on your corporate environment, they'll be having to pull down the latest app, doing the connection information again, and then switching that off of their old existing mobile application. Setting up application security is definitely key. This can be done within the mobile web application server, and it also in 4.1 can be done within the CMC under the Applications Adjustments for mobile devices. Ongoing maintenance, keep in mind that auditing end-user usage, looking for people attempting to access the system and trying to do a password guessing process is key. Once you're exposing out your corporate environment externally and allowing people to try to do logins externally, you should be aware when people are attempting to try and are failing frequently. Also, looking at usage that's odd for end users, leverage the auditing information inside of Business Objects. Build a report that provides information to show when people are logging in and the number of times that failed logins are attempting. Keep up with end user management inside the CMC. As people are leaving the organization or changing roles, make sure that you take a key effort to being able to disable those accounts, keeping those accounts within the right access to the BI content, realizing that their mobile connectivity, it makes it very easy to be able to get that BI content, but we want to make sure that that content is going to the right people. And so take the time to close out users or take them out of the system as needed. So that kind of brings up some of the security questions and concerns that IT organizations tend to be asking. And so let's talk about that a little bit. I think there's a balance that you need to have based on ease of use versus security and getting through all the technology to be able to get to content. I'm all for ease of use, but going to the extreme of just putting a web application server externally, putting no SSL certificate on there, and not challenging with passwords that are complex or passwords that are demanded to be changed based on a policy is too easy of a content. And you're asking for someone to be able to gain access to your BI content that's not supposed to have that information. So I highly suggest that some SSL certificate is invested in, whether it's a self-signed certificate or signed by a third-party organization and placed on that external web server, if that's the method that you're going to be leveraging. That SSL certificate concept is easier for end users versus maybe some concept where we're leveraging a VPN connection to the infrastructure. In a VPN model, we would have to VPN first your mobile device into your network and then do your connectivity afterwards. That might not sound very difficult now, but sometimes the VPNing process can be an overhead and have some element of complexity and might be frustrating for your end users. So you want some adoption. I'm not saying that the VPN connection and infrastructure is not a viable solution. I'm just saying do realize that there is some complexities and that might frustrate your end users. Leveraging with the SSL certificate, we also usually see a reverse proxy server structure. It's an optional element. You could put your certificate directly on Tomcat or whatever your web application server is. We do like to see the reverse proxy server being leveraged. It will hide or provide access to your content within another layer, allowing then your web application server to be maintained internally inside the system, and your reverse proxy then being inside your DMZ. And we'll talk about that and show some diagrams of that here in just a moment. Corporate mobile standards, we talked about that before. I don't recommend a BI team just going off and deploying mobile and providing that out to end users and not working directly with the larger IT organization and understanding what the security needs are around passwords, around access associated to content, explaining to them what your BI infrastructure, how it's managed, and what kind of access people have currently is all very important. So having that discussion and then building standards upon that so that future administrators and future IT organizations, people within the IT organization understand what those standards are and abide by those, and so that that not too much information is given, and likewise at the same time not too many hurdles or restrictions are provided, so that really the BI mobile solution isn't useful. Password applications, password requirements are by default on the application, the mobile applications themselves. Then there's also a password based on the connection back to your business objects environment. I highly recommend implementing a policy related to your passwords. Typically, we can do those based off of policies that you already have if you're leveraging some LDAP environment or Windows Active Directory policy. Possibly saying that every 3 months or every 2 months you're having to change it. It has to be this level of complexity. When definitely moving to a mobile environment and you're going to be re-leveraging that same infrastructure for AD or LDAP, you want to make sure that that policy is being maintained all the way through, and so that passwords are changing and that they're complex. If you're leveraging Enterprise as your solution for integration into business objects, and within the application, the CMC application, we see authentication. Under that authentication is the enterprise security. There too you can employ specific password requirements, number of times the password can be reused, complexity related to those. So you can apply both in your directory service environment, but then also in the Business Objects Enterprise tools too. Saving data on devices by default is disabled. I think that's probably done to be more cautious. And when there's an organization that wants to allow that to be provided for its end users, I think good use cases need to be explained and talked through to make sure that that's a viable solution. I think it's becoming, when we first were going out with BI Mobile for a lot of organizations, that discussion was more prevalent. Now with larger connectivity and people having more availability to 4G network capabilities or Wi-Fi in most locations, saving data doesn't seem as important within organizations on mobile devices, because you can just be connected all the time and do the refreshing and viewing that data at that moment. Again, as I mentioned, monitoring usage within audit reports, and then locking out people after they've left the company. You might also look at third-party applications, something like a Sybase Safaria, that would have the ability to wipe mobile devices from afar. If it's a bring-your-own-device type of deployment within a company, if you're concerned that that mobile application has been deployed and people still have access to that information, Sybase Safaria would allow the ability to remove that application and on any data that's been stored related to that application. And so it's a nice tool and might be something that you would implement when pulling together your mobile strategy. Specifically around property files and configuring the mobile application server, a lot of those security adjustments that we just talked about are in one of two files that's in the mobile application that get deployed on the Tomcat server. So in a client settings.properties folder and a file, and then also the mobile properties file, you would see properties that were very similar to these ones that you can see in 4.1 now directly. Do you allow the ability to save passwords? Do you have offline storage? If so, how long is that till it's expired? Do we want to allow for application passwords? And those different types of security elements are controlled by the properties file, but then again in BI 4.1, you can now do them inside the CMC. Let's briefly talk about different deployment strategies. As I mentioned, a reverse proxy and SSL solution. So we see over here that would be one of our options, being able to have our business object server and Explorer installed here in connectivity, maybe out to something like Active Directory. Web Intelligence, I'm sorry, the web application server here would be serving up content related to the mobile devices. The reverse proxy server over here would then isolate and show only content that we want to send out to the mobile devices. Your certificate might be on your proxy server, or it might actually be all the way back to the Tomcat environment also. We can do that similar type of kind of structure within the Sybase Unwired platform. It has kind of a concept of a relaying server and proxying ideas, and so that's another additional option. I'm showing an option here where we're going directly out from the mobile devices through the DMZ back to my web application server. The web application server in this type of mode can be in either the DMZ, or behind the DMZ, realizing that I would just be opening ports open of 443 if I have an SSL certificate that's being provided. Be conscious, though, if you're placing your web application server inside the DMZ and you want to still leverage the Windows AD credentials, you might need to open additional ports back up to your domain controller, which is typically not recommended. Here, a reverse proxy is considered a better method, associated being to isolate the web application server and still allowing for the Windows AD credentials. A more simplistic type of deployment, not having to look at these type of structures, would be something as simple as a VPN connection. Taking our mobile device, maybe with using a Cisco Anywhere for a mobile, and connecting up to that VPN network environment. And then I'm literally on your network, and so I can then access your existing web application structure without having to deploy any SSL certificates or any reverse proxy concepts. So this is simplistic, but it's a simplistic deployment for infrastructure and IT. End users then have to jump through 2 applications in order to be able to get on. First, they need to VPN to your network, and then they can open up the application inside of BusinessObjects and connect to BI Mobile. I would typically look at existing applications that you do. Again, if you're allowing people to leverage their email through their mobile devices, look at that as your model. If you're using HTTPS with a secure socket link, then you probably maybe want to consider that as a solution for your BI mobiles also. Some takeaways here: securing access and your data is highest priority. It needs to be addressed. Make sure you make a plan, communicate your strategy, and work with IT and others. I really like the BI4.1 SPO1 version. It's really nice. It has some cool features within the mobile component. That single app is key. It really makes the logistics of rolling out and deploying your BusinessObjects environment much more simple. So consider maybe doing an upgrade to that latest release and being able to leverage a single app. And then lastly, keep an eye on your usage and resources. Hopefully, I think what most of us think about is that we want more BI adoption. And so we'd really like our infrastructure probably to have to grow in resources and possibly getting additional licensing to be able to support that. But really providing that BI usage more easily and allowing for that. Yeah, I think you can find more information on these specific links. The supported platform document related to BI4.1, I leveraged that. I think we saw this from a compatibility version earlier. In that same document, there's a link to what items are being supported from mobile devices and versions for iOS and Android. I really like these next two documents. You'll find them in the Help area inside of SAP. One is the Mobile Server Installation and Deployment Guide, so it talks about the standard deployments related to mobile, and really does go into more depth than I did today about doing that deployment. So definitely review that document. The Admin and Report Designer document is really cool. A lot of the neat tips and tricks that we're going to be showing you come from this document. It also does highlight some of the details related to setting up security and working with those property files. And so that document's a great one to look at. And then, of course, Decision First in our blog site. Please review that. We're always providing information out to our potential customers and our customers to be able to understand and learn more about BI, and mobile topic is something that we highlight frequently. I think we're going to pass it back over to Stefan to kind of finish it up, and then we'll open up for questions and answers after that.
All right. Thanks, Bob. That was a great presentation. And so, yeah, before we finish the webinar with a Q&A session, we'd like to share with you some of the things we might be able to help you with to take your first steps with mobile BI. So as part of this webinar, we'll actually be reaching out to all of you in the next few days, to share some additional tips and kind of understand your current mobile strategy and see where you're going at this point. As Bob mentioned in the checklist that he went through, one of the key elements to start with mobile is really licensing. And some of you in attendance right now might be already licensed, and others might not. But you all know that sometimes with SAP, navigating licensing is a little tricky. and I speak from experience here, there was with SAP for a few years in the past. So we've helped dozens of customers convert to the right licensing model for their situation. And we've actually earned the status of Partner of the Year that I mentioned earlier through being the go-to partner for SAP for licensing conversions. And then the other thing that we provide is a mobile BI assessment, a readiness assessment. And that's because not all the content you've created mostly in Webby and in dashboards will lend itself to be ported on a mobile device. So we can help you understand which reports can easily be transferred, which ones will need some work, and then which ones are just not going to work on mobile. And ultimately, that will provide you with a good idea of the effort needed for your mobile project. Next slide. And just the final step here before the questions, we want to invite all of you to the next webinars of this series. There's 3 more. They will all be on Thursdays at 2 p.m. Eastern and 11 a.m. Pacific. You can put that in your calendar right now. There's one on September 26th, specifically related to Crystal and Webby, one on October 3rd for Dashboard, and one on the 10th of October to take a look at Explorer and Lumira. And I will turn it back over to Steve for the questions and answer.
Okay, well, thank you very much, gentlemen. Excellent presentation. We are going to go to a brief Q&A session. We have some time for that. We just also want to remind you to type your question into the text box located at the bottom right of your console, and we'll answer as many questions as time permits. If we don't get to your question during this live session, someone will follow up with you in the next few business days. So let's start off. We've got a couple of questions here. Our first one, I'd like to ask, let's see here. Maybe we can start off right here with Bob. Can we get a list of the 35 design components that are supported on the mobile?
Yeah, sure. We do have that list, and when we send out the question and answer piece and the presentation, I can include that as what the ones that are supported. In the latest version of the SAP dashboards, it does do a nice job, though, of when you're rendering the dashboards to be able to kind of show some of the elements that are mobile supported or not. So as you're actively developing it, you do get to kind of see and work with it. But luckily, it is the most common ones. Your list box and your drop-down combo boxes. Your standard charts those are the elements that are supported within the dashboard. And so when you're thinking about, if I'm doing most of my development, I'll probably be able to accomplish that for both for mobile devices and for the desktop, or for a flash type of interface. But yes, we can provide that list, no problem.
Oh, great. Thank you. What mobile apps are available? Alvin wants to know.
So Alvin, there's 2 applications right now. There's one for Explorer that's available, and there's another one that's called the SAP BI Mobile application. And so those 2 applications that you see, Explorer one will provide Explorer content specifically, and that can be leveraged in all the versions of the BusinessObjects environment. And then the SAP BI Mobile application, that one provides access to content like the Crystal and Webby and the dashboards, but then it also provides access to Explorer in the BI 4.1 release of the product. And so those are the 2 applications that you want to search on, in the App Store.
Okay, thanks. Is there a mobile application for analysis for Office or analysis for OLAP?
So that's a good question. So the additional analysis tools, there is availability to be able to see content for analysis for Excel. The method that SAP suggests is that when developing dashboards, what we can leverage is the analysis for Excel integration, build our content out to our BW environment or into our HANA content, You can format that Excel spreadsheet, and then you can take that content and place it into Dashboard Designer. And so really the mechanism of getting the analysis for Office into a mobile application is by embedding it inside the Dashboard Design Studio tool. And so that's the method. Now, as for the analysis for OLAP, there's currently not a mobile device for that. So it's really more of an online analysis tool, but it's a desktop only.
Okay, and I think we can squeeze in one more question here. Does Explorer Information Space and Explorer Views render in mobile environment?
And so that is the case. So when an end user is leveraging the Explorer Information Spaces, they first come into content, and it'll look at what facets or dimensions, if you kind of want to think of it that way, were suggested that were of higher priority, and what measures that have been provided. It'll automatically render content, and then really put a person in a mode where they're immediately designing, you know, and exploring their data. As for the Exploration Views piece, the Exploration Views provides an ability to, as you've been rendering content and looking at the Explorer information, I can save charts of information or tables of information into a dashboard look and feel. And that's available also within the mobile device. At any time, though, when I'm looking at the Exploration view, if I want to go back and I want to do additional analysis with it too, I can drive into any of those charts and do further exploring related to that content. And I also can do my slicing and dicing just like I would normally inside of Explorer. So both of them are supported.
Okay, thanks very much. Unfortunately, that's all the time we're going to have for the live broadcast. We have a lot of great questions, and we will follow up over the next couple of business days. We want to thank you again for attending this webinar, and also want to remind you that after this webinar, if you could please complete the feedback form that will open on your computer. And to complete this form, press the Submit Answer button at the bottom of the page. So again, thank you all for attending today's webinar, Architecting Your Mobile BI Platform, hosted by SAP Insider and presented by Decision First Technologies. Shortly after this live event, we'll send you an email reminder so you can access this presentation on demand, as well as a link to the PDF of the slides, and also a link to the other events within our series. On behalf of our guests, Stefan Nikas with Decision First Technologies and Bob Zanker, our practice manager with Decision First Technologies, we want to thank you for your time